I'm Kevin Rutherford. Welcome to RG's Talent Tips. Today I'm going to show you how to build learning and development capability to drive business performance. Well, if you've watched any of our other videos or seen me speak or teach, you know that my belief is that everything in an organization starts with strategy. When it comes to HR, my belief is that HR's role is to do this: ensure that we have a workforce that is capable of meeting or exceeding the organization's strategic business objectives today as well as the future. Now, today what I want to do is discuss with you an integral function of HR, learning and development, and their role in driving business performance. A lot of people don't think they can do that, but I'm going to show you and share with you a 7-step process that we use with clients when building out their learning and development capability to drive business performance. So let's dive right in. So one of the first things I want to do here is just share with you again, I mentioned that 7-step process. I want to share with you the wheel. Again, you'll notice here in the middle is business strategy. So let's kind of walk through each of the steps in here. There's 7 steps, and we'll look at step 1. Step 1 is really all about aligning learning with the business. And if we think about it, one of L&D's primary tasks is to develop and shape a learning strategy that's based on the company's business and its talent strategies. So without a doubt, L&D's role then is critical to the implementation of business strategy. What we have found is that in almost every situation, every circumstance, business leaders believe in training, but they don't always see the value in training. That's the big difference. So for L&D to create true value, they must align with the company's overall priorities. And somewhat surprisingly though, research has found that many L&D functions fall short on this dimension by a big number. Roughly 40% of companies say that their learning strategy is aligned with business goals. The key takeaway: nearly 60% of all L&D departments have no direct connection to the company's strategic objectives. And in order for an organization to execute on its strategy, it must have a capable workforce. That's where L&D comes in. The learning strategy should support professional development and build capabilities across the company. So let's take, for example, if one of the business strategies is a digital transformation, L&D will focus on building the necessary people capabilities to make that possible. In addition, the learning strategy can also enhance the company's culture and encourage employees to live the company values. Bonus points. But to be effective, L&D must take a hard look at employee capabilities and determine which ones are most essential to support the execution of the company's business strategy. And this should be an ongoing process to reevaluate alignment on a yearly basis, or as, quite frankly, business needs change, as they have in the last couple years. This is to ensure that they're creating a people capability agenda that truly reflects business priorities and strategic objectives right now and in the future. So if you want a better idea on how to do that, you may want to watch our other video on how to conduct a workforce competency gap analysis. Let's move to step 2. Step 2 is all about integrating learning with HR and other business processes. So just as L&D learning activities need to be aligned with the business, they should also be an integral part of the HR agenda. L&D has an impact on several other functions such as recruiting, onboarding, workforce planning, performance management, promotion, and succession planning. So in our experience though, many L&D functions have only loose connections to these other talent management areas, and many operate in narrowly defined silos. As a key component of talent management, it is incumbent upon L&D leadership to really dig in and understand the major HR management practices and processes, and then work closely with HR leaders to integrate them effectively. Today's workplace reality is a hybrid of on-site and off-site work that requires new skills and maybe even in some instances a new culture for both leaders and employees. Helping managers build skills to provide development feedback can significantly improve engagement and retention. So let's look at another integration example. And that might be one that really creates a focused onboarding program that accelerates employee cultural adoption and time to competence. This then equally ramps up individual and organizational performance faster. Additional benefits can be seen in better scores on employee engagement and satisfaction, as well as reduced turnover of new hires. So with that, let's kind of take a look at step 3. This I think is a big one too, because you don't see this in a lot of organizations. And that is create a learning culture. And whether you know it or not, your organization has a learning culture. It may not be the one you want, but it has a learning culture. Because if you employ people, then learning is happening in your workplace every day. Learning experiences happen all around us. The big question is, are you directing them? Or are you allowing them to happen and learn by happenstance on their own? Unfortunately, I see the latter happen all too often. Leaders see the need for learning, but view it more as an expense versus an investment. Again, they want to see the value in learning. So if you want to drive business performance, then creating a learning culture is paramount. It's about continuous learning and creating a culture of learning that really supports it. Now, one of the fastest ways to make that happen is to embed learning as a core organizational value. Employees really need to know and feel that leadership supports it. They support that learning culture. Developing a culture that supports learning is an investment, but it provides tremendous business benefits for your organization. From employee engagement to increased productivity, a learning culture is something that every organization should strive to develop. Now let's take a look at step number 4. Step number 4 is provide appropriate learning options. Now, many L&D functions grew up on the idea and embraced the familiar 70-20-10 learning framework. That's whereby 70% of learning takes place on the job, 20% is through interaction and collaboration, and 10% is through formal learning interventions like classroom training or some type of digital curriculum. These percentages have been the de facto standard for decades. I think I remember this being created probably in the 80s, 90s. It's been so long ago, right? But they do vary slightly by industry and organization. However, in today's world, I believe they're not sufficient. With today's pace of change, smaller staffs, and speed of technological advances, I recommend to most all of my clients that they shift their thinking from 70-20-10 to 50-30-20. It's just too much to absorb today. You need to have other interactions. So for L&D to provide appropriate learning solutions, it's the leaders must design and implement interventions that really support informal learning, and that would include things like coaching and mentoring, on-the-job instruction, say maybe apprenticeships, and even lunch and learn kind of sessions, to name a few. I think what's interesting too is in today's world, social technologies are also playing a growing role in connecting both internal and external experts with their staff to create and share knowledge. Some of those type of learning solutions might include things like next generation learning management systems, virtual classrooms, mobile learning apps, bite-sized learning modules that may be even available on your mobile phone, or embedded performance support systems, polling software, and even learning video platforms, to name just a few. So L&D leaders must make sure that learning technologies fit into an overall system architecture that includes functionality to support the entire life cycle, talent management life cycle, from onboarding and everything in between to the day they walk out the door and offboarding. That's the key component here in terms of creating that. So step number 5, managing learning effectively. This is critical because managing learning effectively really starts with building out a multi-year L&D strategy that is based on what? The company's strategy, the business strategy. Now that could be 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years, depending on whatever your organization does. Quite frankly, I always recommend 3. and then do a rolling 18 months in terms of the change. It really lays out the themes, goals, and initiatives by year to build out a capable workforce. So let me just show you, I want to show you a quick example. Now this is just touches on a couple of key pieces, but whenever we help clients build out a L&D strategy, some of those key components that we look at is several different things, but let me just kind of walk through the first one. So here we're going to look at, this is an example of key elements that you need to build out that L&D strategy. Here you see, this is year 2 in a 4-year strategy, could be a 5-year strategy. And what we're really wanting to do is to create something that tells the organization, where are we, where do we want to be, how are we going to get there. So year 2 is really focused on learning and development excellence. And you see that the key things that we're going to focus on in that year are, what is our theme, meaning what are we planning on doing for the year. So each year you want a theme. You also want an overriding goal or goals, and then you want key initiatives with specific goals underneath. And remember, like most organizations, when it comes to goals, you probably only want somewhere between 2 to 5 goals that you're going to focus on, because you'll have a lot of initiatives under each of those. So let me just kind of walk you through this example. So in this first one, if we're saying L&D excellence is the year 2 go forward strategy, the theme then is running L&D like a business. Because here we're trying to say we want to run it like a business. We want to be able to show a profit and a loss, so to speak, and show a return on investment. Next, the overriding goals that we have in year 2 is to really demonstrate, again, what did we say that executives missed earlier? They missed seeing the value of learning, because we want to be able to link that to our business strategy, right? Critical that we link it to business strategy. So now that we have our theme, we have our overriding goals, what are the key initiatives that we're going to make? Now here's the first goal. The first goal is what? Demonstrate value of learning, right? That's what we want to do. And the key initiative underneath that goal is, this is one of them. There's going to be several bullets, but one would say, develop the 2019 to 2021 L&D strategic plan with, and this is critical here, with CEO and board buy-in. Okay, we're looking for board buy-in. Now again, these are only, a couple little samples of some initiatives. There's obviously going to be 3 or 4, maybe even 5 initiatives below this particular goal. Then we'll have maybe another goal with another 3 or 4, 5 initiatives, something along those lines. But the idea is to create a theme, a thematic goal, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. The organization needs to be able to see, where are we today, where do we want to be, how are we going to get there, what's our success path is the way to think about it. Okay, so let's move on. And again, while this may look like a small number of initiatives, nothing was really in place and the entire plan was really built from scratch. So that's why you see these here. So let's talk about step number 6. So I'm going to go back here real quick and look at it. Now we're at step 6, and that is supporting application of skills in the workplace. Application of learning is what I would call the golden ticket for improved individual and organizational performance, because it is what leads to the development of a capable workforce. In our 5E learning and development approach, the last E focuses on environment. And here we specifically call out actions that support that application of learning. For example, some things that we might look at, and that is that the company ensures funding and programs and management time and tools and performance support for continuous learning. Another thing that they may do here is pre, during, and post-learning reinforcement and application of learning on the job. And then lastly, something like manager-driven one-to-one coaching with the staff to improve performance in their role. So if you have any more questions about that one, you might want to check out our website for more on this 5E approach that we use under the Development tab. So another critical component in the application of learning is clarity and articulation of roles and responsibilities for everyone who contributes to building a capable workforce. Again, notice I said everyone, because building a workforce capability is not the sole responsibility of L&D or HR. Everyone has a role to play. So the first thing that I would do is suggest that you begin by defining the roles and responsibilities of 4 major constituent groups. And those 4 groups are senior management, HR and the L&D unit, line managers, and then employee job holders. Making sure that everyone understands their role and responsibility is integral to organizational HR and L&D strategy execution. Because without it, quite frankly, you're going to see the blame game, so to speak, escalate, and then there's going to be lots of cries for cut the L&D budget. We don't see the value. Cut the L&D budget. They don't see the value because they don't have ownership. Give them a hat to wear. Give them responsibility. All right, so let's move to our last step. Step number 7. Evaluate L&D impact on business performance. The final step here in the development is the development and really implementation of an effective evaluation system for L&D. Because if we can't prove what we're doing, nobody's really going to listen. I think of evaluation as the process of determining how effective learning and development is in enhancing individual, departmental, and/or organizational performance, and if the investment is justified. One of the ways a learning strategy's execution and impact can be measured is by using something we're all familiar with, key performance indicators, KPIs. The first indicator looks at business excellence. How closely aligned are L&D initiatives and investments with the business priorities? The second KPI looks at learning excellence. Do learning interventions change people's knowledge, behavior, and ultimately their performance? Now, I'll be honest, accurate measurement is not simple. In fact, many organizations still rely on the old traditional impact training metrics like learning program satisfaction and completion scores. But the best organizations today focus on outcome-based metrics such as impact on individual performance, say employee engagement, maybe even team effectiveness, business process improvement, and organizational performance. So the key here, I think, is using this method, we can aspire to develop what I call the triple ROI in L&D. So what is triple ROI? Let me show you real quickly. I'm going to come over here real quickly, and I want to show you this one. So the triple ROI in L&D. The first one, number 1, is a return on investment. What every CEO, what every CFO, what every organization is looking for. We want it to be cost efficient and cost effective. The second key ROI that we want is what we call return on individual. This is key, right? This is critical because what we're looking here is, did the knowledge that they gained, did it change their behavior and did it improve their performance? Return on the individual. And then lastly, number 3 is what we call return on impact. That's improved job performance and future capability for our talent pipeline. That's our triple ROI. So there you have it. In a nutshell, that's a comprehensive 7-step process that you can use to build learning and development capability to drive business performance. So again, let me go back here real quick, and I'm going to bring this up. The 7-step performance piece here, again, step number one, align learning with the business. Step number 2, integrate learning with HR and other business processes. Step 3, create a learning culture. Step 4 is about providing appropriate learning options. Step 5, managing learning effectively. Step 6, support application of skills in the workplace. And lastly, number 7, evaluate learning and development. If you follow these 7 steps, you will no longer be L&D. You and L&D will no longer be a nice to have, but a must have in your business. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something that you can apply right away. If you did and want more, please subscribe to our channel below and check out our website for even more content, handouts, and free tools that will take you from where you are to where you want to be. Until next time.